Hello everyone, it's Trader ZS1 here from Chart Engineers, and today I'm going to be showing how I put theory into practice. So in the previous lessons we discussed the following: market structure, liquidity, price and time, fair value gaps, price delivery and entry techniques. So now I'm just going to show you how I put it together on naked price chart. So the way I currently trade Bitcoin is I follow the H12 market structure, and that direction, like if I anticipate higher high, higher low, lower low, or lower high, I will look to trade it in line with that. And then my entries are just off of H1 breaker zones or a H1 breaker zone fractal. And then all I do is I target liquidity, so my H12 lows, my H12 highs, or if I get a H1 breaker zone in the opposite direction, I'll look to close out my trade. So now I'm going to flick over onto a naked price chart and I'll see you there. So here we have a naked price chart of Bitcoin, and as we can see, so we've had our bull run and it all started from this monthly sweep, and then we had our monthly MSB, and then we just stayed in this uptrend. And the way I like to see my higher time frame trend is I just use my weekly market structure. So where we would have shifted into this downtrend, that low and that high, as we can see we have a higher high and a higher low, and then we've closed above, new higher high. What low made that high? It's going to be this one here, and then it's going to go there, and then our new low would be there, and then a new high up here, and then a new low, and then a new high, and then a new low. So I'd anticipate for the market to just continue trending up unless we close below this weekly low. So now let me get into how I would trade this on my intra-week perspective. So to start, we're going to have our 12-hour market structure high and our 12-hour market structure low. So that low, that high, and as we can see, we've now gone into a downtrend. So that's going to come lower, and then here we have this breaker, and then I know I'm going to anticipate a lower high, and then I can see that we have this raid inside. And if I go to the 1 hour time frame now, and I'm looking for shorts towards the low, we do have these relatively equal highs. The market comes up, takes out the highs, and we have our 12-hour sweep, and then we have our 1 hour breaker zone fractal. So that's again just going to be the breaker, that's the raid candle, so from the low to that high, and then this is where we have our 1 hour MSB too. And this shows that we've now gone into a downtrend on the 1 hour, and we can expect the price to continue lower. And then after we made this 1 hour fractal, not from there, from here, have this 1 hour sweep, and then we have our 1 hour breaker zone. So if we look here, that would be our breaker zone, but this is where we break our structure on that low. And what I like to do is, if my breaker is lower than my MSB, I'll just draw my breaker zone from the MSB, and then this is where I'll get into my position from. And now if we go back to the 12-hour, we can see that we had these equal lows here. So the market come down, reaction, made these equal lows from there and there inside this fair value gap. So I know that this is most likely going to be the draw on price, and then as we see, we had one more push down and we swept the lows. And then if we go to the 1 hour, we can have our targets. So if we get our short position and then drag that to the low, so that's going to be about 1.4R, and then our next entry is going to be just over 3R, so about 4.5R from these two cells. And then as we can see, we have now rated all of our lows into this fair value gap, so we can anticipate the market might push higher. And then what do we have here? We do have this 1 hour breaker zone. So that's the low, that's the last up candle before the low. So this can be our breaker zone, and then we break our 1 hour structure up here. So where we had our MSB, I would anticipate the market to come back in over here, but that never happened, so just no entry for those longs. But now if we go back to the 12 hour, we will be able to see that the market has now created this 12 hour breaker zone, and then we did break our 12 hour breaker zone high here. So this is going to anticipate that there is some buy-in in the bottom part of this downtrend. So again, that's just identifying that we are now most likely going to range. We swept the lows multiple times, and then we created a breaker zone, a higher time frame breaker zone at the bottom. So then we have 12 hour sweep inside, and then again we can just look for our longs off of this from our 1 hour fractals. So now if we look, where are our fractals going to be? So that's the low, so this breaker zone would now be here. As we see, this breaker zone is a little bit big, and then inside it we have this other breaker zone get created, and then this is the one I'd prefer to use. So then that would be MSB, and then this here would also be an MSB. And now as you can see, the market's had 1, 2, and now we even had a raid inside again, and then we're going to have another MSB up here. So there's multiple entries, but remember, the main one is your stop loss should be at the bottom of your higher time frame raid, as this is where, you know, your idea is wrong. So 1, 2, 3 entries, and preferably we'd want to be in the bottom one, as it's going to offer the most risk to reward. And then, you know, the market just continues up, trending up. There is opportunities to get in the market on the way up. However, normally I prefer to just be in the bottom one, the lowest entry, and then just ride it up. So then here is going to be some more examples of just breaker zones. And then, so that would be our MSB. But generally I don't take these type of ones. I just look to be in these ones here, these ones here. And then, sure, there's some more in here, but I don't look to trade them, so I'm not going to mark out any more. I'm going to go back to my 12 hour and just see where my next trades will come from. So we've got this over here, the market is pushing up, pushing up, pushing up, and then we don't have any sweeps at the top, so I have no reason to short it. and then instead we break structure and we get our new market structure high, new market structure low. And then as you can see, I'm going to anticipate the market to push up, so I'm going to look for a higher low to form in the bottom part of our market structure. So we can just see that from getting 50% of our fib retracement. Don't even know if I have that on. Let me do it here. So anywhere in the bottom 50% is where I'd look for a high low to form. And then, so we've swept our low, but at the same time we've made these equal lows here between that low and that low. And then if we go to the 1 hour, I'm just going to look for 1 hour breaker zones to get into a buy position off. As we can see, the first time the market's come down, no breaker zones created. And now the market's come down again, and we now have a breaker zone created at the very bottom. So that would be our breaker zone there. And as we can see, we wicked in once, and then we swept inside it and pushed up again. And at the same time, where we anticipated to put in a higher low, or the market to just push up and go for a higher high, we closed below our market structure low on this candle here. So my structure lines are going to shift over. That's my new high, and that is my new low. So now I'm going to anticipate to get a lower high just in the upper region of this market structure. And then I noticed that we have this up here. This is just an order block, the last up candle before a down move. And now if I go to the 1 hour, where you're going to see no raids. 12 hour, we do have a raid here. We have that 12 hour sweep. And now I'm just going to anticipate the market to come lower, especially after we create a 12 hour breaker zone again. So just like how we did down here, 12 hour breaker zone, 12 hour breaker zone. And then we can just look for some 1 hour breaker zone fractals inside. So the 1 hour breaker zone off of this would have been there, and this didn't give an entry. However, we're still in the 12 hour one, so I'm going to leave that marked out. And as we can see, the market come up here, rated that high, and then as we can see, that is the low. That's our down candle, the breaker that we're going to use. And then this is where we would have shorted the market, and then we would have taken our profit at the low, because that is where we target our 12 hour liquidity. So as we can see, equal lows forming 1, 2, swept the low, reaction, straight back up, and now we've come into this previous area again, 1 hour raid, and then we have this breaker zone here, and this is a trade that I'm currently in, so we'll see how this plays out. I would like to see this come lower, but you'll notice that in this scenario here, there is in fact no breaker because there's no down candle. So what I would do, or what I do, is I just mark out where my market structure break is coming from, and then I just mark out my breaker zone from the low to the high, and that is it. So over the period of about a month, I'd say, the past month's price action, we did have a fair amount of entries. Let me just put the MSB here. So we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 entries, I'd say. Maybe 7 or 8 if you want to take those. But yeah, so that is a fair few amount of entries, and as you can see, the majority of them did do a few R. So between 1 to, you know, a lot more R. I'm not going to count how much this is because realistically we don't need loads of R from each trade. As long as we can take around 1.5 to like 4 R per trade, that is honestly enough. Because if you're consistently making these small R's, they just add up and add up over time, and then after each win, the profits are now worth more because you'll be risking a little bit more each trade, if that makes sense. And the risk I like to use when trading is 2%, and then I generally just aim to make 5% a week, so 2.5 R a week, and I normally do that with ease. And then after the course of a year, that 5% every week will add to over 1,200% a year. So that is doing 12 times your money every year, and if you can do that for a few years, you should be doing good enough to retire from trading, or just continue full time. But yeah, this is how I trade Bitcoin. I hope you guys found it useful, and if you have any questions, just let me know in the Discord server and I'll be more than happy to help. So now, moving on from how I trade Bitcoin, I'm going to be going over how I trade my Forex pairs. So I like to mainly focus on the higher time frame, just because I don't have to spend as much time at charts, but my trades will be much less frequent. But what I do focus on is if I get like a daily sweep, and then I'll look to get in the market when my H4 market structure changes, and that will normally create a 4-hour breaker zone, and then I just wait for sweeps inside, and then my entries will just be on the 15-minute breaker zones that get created after my sweeps, and then I will target between 1 to 3 R most of the time. And then there's a few occasions where I can target liquidity. So now I'm going to flick over onto a price chart and I'll see you then. Okay, so here we have a naked price chart of USD CAD, and this is probably one of my favorite pairs to trade FX on, just because I find it works like well with the strategy I use. So the first step I would look for is my direction and just where is my daily raids, my daily sweeps. So to start, this here would be the first one. You can see we've had a small wick above, and then once I get this, I would just drop down to my 4-hour, and then I would wait for my 4-hour breaker zone to be formed. So that's the high, that's going to be the low. So we're going to need an MSB of this. So then I'll just see how this plays out, wait for our breaking structure. Hasn't quite closed below. Okay, had our close below. So now I'll just go ahead and mark out our 4-hour breaker zone. And now what I wait for is a 4-hour sweep inside. Okay, so here we have our 4-hour sweep inside our breaker zone. And now let me go back just one more candle. So here we can see our raid, and then I'll just go down to my 15-minute, and now here is my 15-minute breaker zone that I'm going to be entering off of, and then I'll just set my sell limit, and then my take profit would be, well, in this case here we have 1 low, 2 lows, 3 lows, and these are relatively equal. And then we also have this fair value gap right here. So this is probably going to be a draw on price. So if I go back to my 15-minute, I'll just drag this all the way down, and this would be 5.74 R. So now I'll just let this play out. So there we go, we've been tagged into our trade, and then just let it play out unless we see a reason to close the trade. As we can see, hasn't been any raids, and now we are also currently up 1.8 R, so not quite enough to close it just yet. and again we have no reason to close the trade, so 3R would probably be the minimum in this case. Now as we can see, the market has started to trend lower, and then a good sign is on the way down we have this raid here. These are not going to be so much re-entries, just showing me that price is breaking lower and it's going to continue in that direction rather than, you know, come back up. So it's a good sign. And this here would have been a 3R trade, and then as we can see the market is trending lower still. So we'll just let this play out until we get our next sort of entry. And as this is, you know, higher time frame, playing off the 4-hour daily, we're going to have less opportunities, but we will have, like, I'd say potentially bigger R trades, as we can have bigger targets, but also it helps keep, you know, not everyone can be sitting there in front of the charts all day, so this will allow people to still get in and out the market, you know, in their own time. So here we have another daily raid, and if we go to the 4-hour, okay, we've broken structure as we can see down here. This is in fact a high, so I'll label this as MSB. And now we have our breaker zone right here. So I'll just wait for, you know, the market to come back into here, or again a raid up into here. So now I'll just press play. Okay, that's a bit too quick. So now if I just let it play out, there's nothing quite here. Let's go to the daily, nothing. 4-hour. Let's just wait and see what we get. Okay, so here I think we've raided. Yep, we've raided a high. And now again, I think it might daily high too. So now we can just drop down to our 15-minute time frame and just look for ourselves. So as we can see, our area would be this here. This here would be our breaker zone, and then below here would be our market structure break. So before we can look to sell, I'm going to need a close below there. So I'll just fast forward this a little bit on the 4-hour. Okay, we've had another raid of the high. So now I'm going to go back to my 15-minute, and now my area is going to change, and where I need the MSB is also going to change. So that's my high. What low made that high is going to be here. So this is going to be our MSB. And now our breaker zone is going to be there. That's the breaker, that's the high. Now if I just bring this across one more time, 4-hour sweep inside our daily sweep, 4-hour breaker zone, and now we're having another daily sweep inside our higher time frame breaker zone, and then 15-minute for the entry. So in this case, we just be in our trade here, drag that up, and then what potential targets can we have? Okay, so I see have this small fair value gap here. If I just drag that across, so this would be first target, and then this here would be our second target. And then 15-minute, what kind of risk to reward is this going to be offering us? So here it's going to be just over 1R, and then second target is going to be about 2R. So now we can just let this play out, and we'll see if we have any reason to, you know, cut this trade. As we see it moving down, not going to need that up anymore. Okay, so in this case, still just pushing lower, lower lows, lower highs on the 15-minute time frame. Let's speed this up. Okay, so first push down, and as we see, no real reason to cut the trade. it's just continued lower, and that would be my trade done. And as we can see, as we've had our daily sweep, 4 hour, we can just let this play out. Okay, in this case, just come straight down aggressively, but there's no need to, you know, be in this whole move just because the lower R's consistently will add up more over time. But of course, feel free to, you know, shave part of the position and leave a runner, and then just let that either go all the way down or just stop you out at break even or something. But personally, I prefer to just close my trade after a couple of R. And now, as we can see, we still have this breaker zone lower, so hasn't quite come into it yet. Just keep playing. Okay, this looks like we're getting a daily low forming. So, yep, we have a daily low. I'll mark that out. That's going to be some liquidity sitting there, waiting to be taken out, and we are actually coming back into this breaker zone here. And now, as we can see, we've just raided into it. I know we've raided a low as well, but in this case, I can see that we are quite clearly ranging. So, and this is, you know, the higher end of our range. So I'd be looking to sell rather than buy off of this top sweep, and I'm just going to choose to ignore that bottom sweep. So now if I go to the 15-minute, where is my breaker zone going to be? So that is my low, and then my high is going to be here. And as we can see, the breaker is lower than our MSB, so I'm just going to take my entry from the MSB. So now if I just let this play, okay, so we have a new high now, and we're also going to have a new low. And as we can see, our 4 hour is still, you know, raiding the high. 15-minute. So that's going to be our low here. New market structure, new low for the 15-minute. So let's put that on the bottom. And now, where's the breaker? As we can see, that's an up candle. So our breaker is going to be the same as our MSB candle. So now if we're looking here, we can just wait for the market to come down, back up, and then continue lower. And then as for targets, as we can see, we have this pretty big fair value gap right here. And then we also have another one down here, another one here, and then we also have this daily low sitting here at the bottom of our range. So I would just be out at probably our first or second target. I'd just be looking for this low, and then, you know, maybe start shaving here, just because you don't need loads of R off of every trade. As long as you can make the smaller amounts more consistent, it doesn't really matter about getting these massive trades all the time. So now if we just press play, okay, so we've had our MSB, the market's now come up, and this here would be our entry. And now we can just drag this lower, and then where were our targets? So first target would have been here, about 1.23R, and then next target about 2.3R. And for me, that would be enough to just close the trade. So now it's just a waiting game, you know. And remember, because your entries are off of your 15-minute, it's going to take a bit longer than trading any other way, like Litz and CoinTrader on the 1 minute. But again, not everyone can be sitting there to trade the 1 minute. So this would be ideal for someone who's probably working full time. So then if we just wait, it's taking its time. Okay, it's come all the way up. Hasn't quite, you know, touched our target. But again, waiting game. I don't move my stops to break even normally unless I've shaved and I'm leaving a little bit of a runner. But in this case, it's come all the way back up. If we go to our 4 hour, it has in fact had another raid. So this can be giving another entry potentially. So now if I just go back, 15-minute, 4 hour raid, another 15-minute area has been created, and we've actually had our MSB 2. So MSB, and this looks like it was on a Friday. So that's going to be our weekend gap. In this case, I would just be leaving it Friday night, and I'd be looking to enter Sunday evening, just because of the, you know, open spreads during the dead zones. It does get too high. So now I'd be looking to sell probably about an hour after. So that's 10 o'clock, and then 11 o'clock over here, the spreads should have calmed down. So I'll be getting into my trade, and then again, the targets are still the same. We have this low here, and then we had this here of where we was looking to shave. So now 15-minute, just let it play out and then just see what happens. As we can see, proceeded lower quite quickly. If we go to a 4 hour, this looks like it's coming for this low down here. Now if we just go to the daily, okay, as we can see, we've had a significant sweep of the low into our area. Nothing on the 4 hour just yet, but we know we've already did a daily low, and that for me is going to be enough to take the trade off of a 15-minute breaker zone. So I know that's my low. Where is my high? So my high is going to be here. So let's mark that out, MSB. And in this case, the breaker is going to be higher. So I'll just take my trade from the MSB. And then when I get into my trade, where am I going to be targeting? Okay, I can see that we have this fair value gap here. And then we also have this one here. And then another one up here. So here is where I'd be looking to target. And then we also have 4 hour swing high right here. And then 15-minute. This looks like we could have potential 3-4 hour trades. Yep, so first target would be 1.79 to the high 2.67, and then to the top of the, to the bottom of the fair value gap is going to be just under 5R. So we'll see how this plays out. Markets come up, and now it's coming lower. The liquidity still has been taken out. So okay, here's our trade. Taking its time, come close to the stop, but our stops are here for a reason. We don't need to, you know, get scared of the trade. Just let it play out. If you get stopped, you get stopped. It's not the end of the world. There will always be more opportunities. And as we can see, the market's coming up. Our first target was hit. The market's come back down, and now it's continued higher. And then we had our 4 hour sweep, and that is going to be over 2R, which is enough for me. So now if we check one more time, that is over 2.5R, so more than enough for me. And yeah, this is essentially how I trade USD CAD. And I do prefer to trade when, you know, my markets are ranging. And if you have any questions about this, feel free to message me in the Discord channel, and I'll be more than happy to help.